What's up, everybody? We just never really figure out how to do that. Right, wrong, or I don't know. I don't know. We don't know what we're doing yet. Still,
I'll be honest
welcome.
with you. I copy the moves of my 1-year-old when he listens to music. That's what he does. He goes,
Isaac, you got it down, buddy. That's exactly what's going on. Oh man, he's a beautiful kid. Welcome, folks. Welcome to the Deeks and Vaca show. This is I don't even know what episode we're on. We don't really number them because we don't really need to. I don't think, but we get to it when we can. But yeah, we started the show last week with a bit of a heavy topic, and frankly, before I saw the text message was released, I was a little too polite about it. I think the Ice Dogs, as you guys heard on our last episode, if you didn't, or if you didn't hear the news in the OHL world, the general manager of the Niagara IceDogs here in Niagara, Joey Burke, and head coach Billy Burke, his brother, were suspended indefinitely until at least June of 2024 for a group message, which was in a WhatsApp conversation amongst other Ice Dogs employees that eventually got leaked to the media. Not just really to the media, but leaked to the public, I would say, actually. So I was pretty disturbed when I got the message. I didn't ask for it. I wasn't trying to look for it. I didn't want the dirt. But then again, I was kind of glad that I did see it because now I saw their true colors. And just like disappointment isn't even really the right word. It's disgusting. I mean, we'll kind of just touch over this, like over the last several days, I thought about it and my gosh, like just didn't know how to process it. But I do now because it's a lot easier when the truth comes out, right?
yeah, and that's it's kind of like, I've talked to some people that had watched our show and thought that we might have been hedging a little bit. And yes, we were. We were definitely sort of because neither of us had the actual information as to what was said.
Yeah.
And there's always that possibility that things could be misconstrued or things could be blown up worse than what they actually were.
I was
But
hoping for that.
and that's what I was hoping for too. And not that I was on the side. I mean, obviously, if they made that decision to suspend them for a couple of years, I knew it was going to be not good. But the question is that, did it seem like an overstep or did it not seem like an overstep? And if anything, I think it was an understep after reading it. You can just tell, even just reading that little bit, it doesn't matter if you're so-called venting or not. It's just that's such a toxic environment for people to have to work in, especially that being a group chat for employees. It's just it was very disturbing, even though I mean, like, I've seen group chats like that before. I've seen people say stuff like that before, but for an organization that is supposedly is supposed to be standing on professionalism and being an upstanding part of the community, to see that is really quite it took the wind out of my sails a little bit for sure.
Yeah, like I said, after, because at this point it's like, well, these guys have been good to me in the past and kind of helped me get it doesn't matter anymore. Like that just doesn't matter. Like they got exactly what they deserved. The Burke family, I mean, there's rumblings about the Ice Dogs being sold right now. And that's the best case scenario for this franchise. Everybody I talk to, every single person that I've talked to that's connected in any way, shape, or form to the Niagara IceDogs, and of course I won't name names, has said nothing great about owner Bill Burke. I've never really heard anything good about him. I've talked to him and his wife, nice people at the time, but for them to allow this, I mean, these are their kids, right? And just I've never really heard, and maybe you can look at it as hearsay and, oh, you don't really know them and you don't really know enough. No, like it's very clear from anyone who's ever worked for them that's ever come out publicly, and more people have been, that they set the tone of this culture. They're hard-headed. They're pig-headed people. I can't speak for Mrs. Burke, so I really don't want to talk about her, really. I just know about Bill Burke and how he operates, and it's his way or the highway, man. Like, he gets what he wants, and if you have a problem with that, like, the most disappointing thing I heard about owner Bill Burke was that, if you don't serve a purpose around him, like if you're not serving a purpose that serves him, he has no use for you. I actually heard that from someone that is connected to is connected to them. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So I brushed it off. This is, by the way, like a year ago. So I was kind of like, okay, like you got to deal with him. He's a bit of an ego, whatever. And then this happens, and these are his kids that are supposedly running the team, thinking they can say and do whatever they want. And I'm proud of the person who came up and spoke up, because like the most embarrassing thing for me was the statement that they released. And Eric, you were right, man. Like you nailed it when you said that it was going to go one of two ways, that they
Mhm.
were going to change their ways and completely just come out and say we were wrong and we need to change the culture. It's our fault, our bad. We are fully responsible. Or they were going to go damage control and try to explain themselves. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, exactly. And then they spent the majority of the time of their statement talking about how devastated they were and how it affects them and how, and like, not like, I think there was maybe one or two sentences about the victim there.
Not
And
even. They
yeah.
they they only mentioned that they didn't call, they weren't they basically just said that they weren't talking about an Ice Dogs employee. Oh, okay, but you were cussing out and ripping apart an employee of the OHL or whatever part
Yeah.
she represents. Like, just you
So,
got to be
yeah. So
kidding me,
that
man.
makes it okay. I don't think so. Right.
No,
So,
it was
yeah.
embarrassing. Like I have the statement here. So, of course, they're devastated by the sanctions brought down by the Niagara IceDogs and the Ontario Hockey League, and certain media outlets are taking liberties speculating on what was said about and about whom. Well, not anymore because the message was shared publicly, and it said, unfortunately, we used profane language, but it was not racial in any sense, nor was it abusive or directed at any Ice Dog staff member, male or female, or any players. So right there, you got to stop,
It wasn't
because,
abusive. Okay.
like, are you kidding me? It wasn't abusive. Like the C word and a homophobic slur. Like, you guys got to be friggin' joking me right now. So it's okay. Don't worry, guys. It wasn't racist, but it was misogynistic, which basically means you disrespected women entirely.
Mhm.
And then it was homophobic as well. And somebody else came out on Twitter and also said that they used to work for them and they used a homophobic slur towards her. So that's only two of the stories that we know of. And
Mhm.
this isn't slander. This is talking about you guys messed up and you deserve what's coming to you.
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean? So I just, yeah,
Yeah. And
that's where it's at.
the saddest thing for me is that, and when I said that in our last show, that it could go one of two directions, it's very disheartening in today's day and age that people don't take that opportunity for growth and to be better. Like, what do you stand to lose by admitting what you did was wrong and saying we are fully committed to working with the league, working with our community, and going through whatever steps we need to change what is wrong with us. Like, you don't even have to say it in that kind of words, but I
Yep.
mean, it's
You
just,
didn't get that at all.
there's just like this somehow um anti change bias, like where people just don't want to, they feel like in some way admitting that what they did was wrong, and or admitting that they could improve and be better is somehow a um you know not living up to their character or who they want to be. Like, somehow they have to try to get people to circumvent this whole thing and just try to forget about it. Oh, we'll just release this damage control statement, um, and then as long as the actual conversation doesn't come out, then we should be fine with that. And they might have been if that conversation didn't come out, but it was out. And I find it funny that it didn't come out right when the league laid down their ruling on it. It came out after they released their statement and said these things, and then the person who had it went, "I don't think so. Here's what they said." Right.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and I think that that's good on whoever that person was too, who released that. And um, as much as I respect that people want to keep their situations as private as possible. Um, as people like you and I who cover hockey and who cover these types of things, we want the truth, and having the truth is a good thing. I think the truth is underrated. So the fact that they weren't able to get away with that damage control statement, I think is a good thing for sure.
Yeah, it was very smart timing by the fact that they waited to see what they had to say before releasing what was actually said in the group text. And it goes on and it says, um, let's see. We also apologize to everyone involved in the chat for the language and tone long before we knew the chat was leaked. It should also be noted that in the 14 years that we've worked for the team, we've never had a complaint brought against us for any inappropriate language or behavior. Not that you got caught for,
Yeah,
by the way.
exactly.
Like,
Not complaint. Never had a complaint brought against them. That's what they're saying. Never, never a
yeah.
complaint against us. Who's going to complain to you? No, but then
Neither
people
of them
go and
were in
complain.
positions of neither of them were in positions of authority until a couple, like 2-3 years ago.
And even at that, even if they weren't in positions of authority, no one's going to complain to. What are you going to complain to their dad? You know, oh, your son is being mean to me. Like nobody's going to do that. They're going to complain to people who can actually do something about it.
Well, what other owners, like what other franchises do you know where mommy and daddy run the show and then their kids get to go and play and run it?
There's I couldn't tell you any offhand, but I bet you there's a lot.
Just in
Like
professional hockey, maybe I'm ignorant then, but it just doesn't work. This one isn't working anyway.
You never see it at like the NHL level, obviously, but I mean, I remember growing up with the Masterson family in the Falls, who ran the show. All of them and their kids and everybody ran the show on the Niagara Falls Canucks. And but they were great people though. Like I enjoyed all of them, and they were really good people. So there is situations I've seen before, but yeah, I mean it's a sad thing that these people were brought up this way. Now, so you have your kids that do this, and even the one statement that you read there from the or the one line from the statement that you read there, where it says, we apologize for the language and the tone of the group chat, not apologizing for what was said, not apologizing to the victim, not apologizing for the concepts that you're putting towards, that you're putting out there, not apologizing for the way you think or the way you're acting. It's just the language and the tone, like as if they could have got away with saying all kinds of misogynistic or homophobic things if they didn't use those couple of words. It would have been fine. Nobody would have said anything. It just tells you that there's a brick wall here that's not getting through. And you know what? They might serve their time, but I doubt anything would change from it based on that statement.
Old school hockey, man. I mean, like, it's time for new owners. It's time for a change for the Niagara IceDogs. The fans deserve better. And again, there was some speculation, but I'm not going to share what I heard, but there's interest. There's interest to purchase this team. And sometimes a change is good and it's for the best. And I think that it's time. And I hope that the counseling actually does something for these guys. I genuinely do. But right now it's about just like it not being okay with it. And I'm not sitting here trying to like, but last episode, I was like, I just didn't know what to say because I was like, oh, these guys have been good to me in the past. I just had one of them on my freaking local TV show. Mm-hmm. And just this is disappointing. It's old school hockey. I would have loved to hear Brian Burke's take on a story like this. Like just absolutely would have loved to hear what he had to say. Like it wasn't really around the hockey world as much as I thought it would be, this story. And it's disappointing because it's an opportunity just to not to just spread slander and gossip and everything, but really just to show like, okay, look at some genuine consequences that were laid here. Like the OHL, even when it comes to just penalties in the games, they have no tolerance for a lot of stuff, and they have no tolerance for this kind of verbal behavior either, which is good. That's good news, and I wish the NHL would follow suit.
Yeah, I think that I think that all levels of hockey are going that way. There's just been too much over the last 10, 15 years that has come out. Not even just with abusive comments or abuse against players, especially young players. Stories that we've heard of abuse from players growing up is just horrific. But also, it's been a change in the culture of the game, where I think that we're moving forward on a lot of different levels, and we're getting away from you say old school hockey. I don't think that's necessarily old
No,
school hockey as much as it
mentality.
is mentality. Yeah, it's an old school
Yeah.
mentality.
Old school hockey with fight, like that's a different conversation.
Yeah,
That's in game. That's in game stuff. You know what I meant though.
because this bleeds into the real world. I mean, is this guy saying the same thing about the girl at Tim Hortons that screws up his coffee in the morning?
Probably.
Because she's working 2 jobs and he has no regard for that, and it's
That's what
like,
happens when you're spoiled, man.
well, I mean, it's not just spoiled. It's like, I know plenty of people who aren't spoiled who still have
Entitled,
that mentality.
spoiled,
Yeah.
entitled.
It's just it's the way that, people were talked to growing up, and the way that they've seen their parents talking to other people and their grandparents and all that kind of stuff. And
This comes right down from the top. Like this happened right under Bill Burke's watch,
mhm.
and I don't think he's much different. So that's where I look at too, is the ownership. I mean, that's where it all comes from. So they need new owners, and that's the absolute bottom line.
Yeah, and if you want to talk mentality, just take a look at the last video, or the last episode that we did was our most viewed by far, and and it has the most comments on it, obviously, because this is a heavy story. And one of the comments said, if you're going to get upset about, or if you're going to start suspending people for misogynistic comments, you might as well suspend the whole league, because everybody does it. And that right there is the epitome of the mentality that we're trying to get away from. This is like, this is the speeding argument. If you're going to start pulling over people for speeding, you might as well pull over everybody, because everybody speeds. Okay. Like, okay, if you're going to start setting murderers to jail, you might as well, like, why even have laws against murder? I mean, it's just silly. And the reason is because we need to set examples, and we need to,
That's right.
to change the culture. You have to set examples, and yes, everybody might do it. And if you're saying that everybody does it, then that's more reason to come down even harder on it as soon as you see it, and as soon as it's out there.
Because you should know better.
Well, not just as you know better, but you've set this example for the rest of the league to say, this is not okay. If you have things like this going on in your organization, let's, be proactive about it, and let's get it out of here before the league comes down on us for it. If you're another team or whatever the case may be. So yeah, that comment that was left there, it just kind of, it made me sit back in my chair a bit, because I was like, I can't believe that the person didn't think beyond their whole the idea that, well, everybody does it, so you might as well just allow it. Like, that's just silly. And that's what we're trying to get away from. And that's why I'm glad that these suspensions were handed out. And I hope that these consequences just keep rolling for him, because that's how you affect culture. And it just starts with one, and then it snowballs.
Yep, that's right. And I'm glad that it was dealt with the way it was. And I really hope for, like, this logo. I'll tell you right now, I just went to the game the other day. I usually work, but I had the chance. This logo is bigger than the owners. I can tell you right now. So do the right thing. Do the right thing. And that's all I got to say about that, man. So I want to shift into our next. I want to shift into our next subject, which is sort of in a similar vein in a way, but journalistic integrity in hockey. Eric, you have a couple subjects you want to mention specifically on this one.
I wanted to talk about this specifically because another comment that we got was that we were somehow, sugarcoating what we knew and not holding them to a bad standards, right?
And didn't have enough information yet. So
yeah,
that's why.
When I read that comment, that's what I thought as well as you. And I thought, if we don't have this information, then we can't come at them that bad. And then there's been 2 great examples since then. And, I worry about, everybody who is on social media or even on the internet in any capacity, that there's clickbait articles out there, and there's things that they put out there to get you to click on, and get you to get outraged about and comment about, because it lines their pockets with money. And these types of articles that you read are generally just complete tripe. You can tell they're rife with spelling and grammar mistakes. And they often don't get the facts straight, and they often jump to conclusions to get you to click on it. So, my plea here is for people to stop clicking on these dumb things stop just giving these people fodder. One incident, like I'm sure you heard about the stick incident with the fan at at the Scotiabank Center the other night during the Toronto Montreal game. Did you hear about that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it comes out that this guy goes on Twitter and he threw Suzuki threw a puck to his kid, and the kid missed the puck, hit him in the lip, started crying because he's just a little guy. And Suzuki went and signed a stick for it and gave it to him. And now this guy goes on Twitter and he says, "Oh, I had to leave the game because they wouldn't let us hold on to the stick." And all of a sudden, in my social feed, there's just 40 articles talking about how Toronto has no class and they could have easily held the stick for them and let them finish watching their game. Oh, this is typical of Toronto and leave people and all this other kind of stuff like that. And so everybody's clicking like crazy on these things. And then sure enough, like very shortly after, within 8 or 9 hours, MLSE sees this going on and releases their statement and says, yeah, we totally offered to hold the stick at guest services for them like we would for anybody. It is dangerous to have a hockey stick when people are jumping up and cheering and all kinds of stuff in our crowds. We know that from evidence of people being hurt in the past. So we offered to keep it at guest services, and they elected to leave on their own with 10 minutes left in the game. Whereas these articles were coming out saying that these guys were given the option, keep your stick and leave, or give it to us and you can watch the game. And it's just a misconstrue of the story, and everybody's outraged. And then all of a sudden, now there's nothing but outrage after that statement against Montreal fans. All these typical Montreal fans lying about everything and blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, how do you people function in your daily lives clicking on this complete bull crap? And then there was another one today that even got me because I don't get caught off guard by these too often, but Toronto's been in on trying to get Matthew Nyes because he's finished his NCAA and he can sign with the team and join now if he wants to, or he can stay in college and finish his 4 years up. And then I believe he comes out of there as a free agent. So it's up to him. So they were going down today. Dubas was going down to meet with him. And I knew about it. I was waiting for the results of that meeting. And sure enough, pops up on my Facebook feed. The title was Leafs Miss Out on Top NCAA Prospect. And I'm like, oh, he decided to stay. And I clicked on it, and it wasn't even about him. It was about some other kid on the team that had signed with Colorado today, one of his line mates. And I was like, oh, they got me again, right? And this, and I just, the lack of integrity from these kind of sites, and the people that write these articles are, they're Joe Schmoes, which again, I'm no more than a Joe Schmo myself, but they're trying to make money off your clicks. And I just want to caution people, if you're going to click on these things and read these articles, remember that your integrity is on the line when you start jumping to conclusions in the comments and stuff as well. And you don't want to be writing out, the all of the staff at MLSE are classless jerks, and then you find out that the whole story was just a lie after. I guess if you're just commenting, you really don't have anything to lose. But just remember that page lied to you. Remember when you click on, Maple Leafs fans or group chat or whatever, that they're just trying to pump out articles with key headlines to get your clicks. And
it's all the algorithm.
Yeah. And just, save your outrage until you know the full story. Do your research. I hate to sound like one of those people on do your research, man, but at least wait until you know the full story before you start spouting off.
Well, yeah, we're all guilty of it, right? Like we're all guilty of clicking headlines that are of interest to us, and that's how they get you, because eventually Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, everything figures out, Reddit, whatever the site is, figures out what you're interested in, and you click on it enough times that those articles are just going to keep popping up, and it's going to keep your interest, whether they're real or not. And that's the pitfall, right? So it's very true, right?
It's not on social media. Social media is just trying to give you what you want. It's the people who are using social media to
Yeah,
make money
that's where it
off
comes.
you
It's just a
with
tool,
controversial stuff. Yeah.
right? It's just a tool
And,
that they use to get it to you.
yeah, and it just sucks to see, like, and I hate that they got me with the Matthew Nyes thing, but I was waiting for the information, and instead of looking at my own sources, I just happened to be scrolling Facebook and I saw that article, and I opened it up and I'm like, oh, this isn't even about Matthew Nyes at all. That's about somebody completely different. I can't remember his name now. It's how much I don't, I didn't even read the whole thing. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, it would have sucked if like I had jumped on one of my chats, people who rely on me for information, and said, "Oh, we didn't get Nyes because I saw that headline," when I actually didn't read the whole article and see it. So
yeah.
you got to
No,
be
it's
careful with that stuff. And I implore, like, I wish that shows and article like and sites that write articles would you know um, have a little bit more integrity and show that they actually care about the real stories instead of just buzzword headlines and stuff like that. And
yeah.
I don't know. That's
It's
just me.
basically just like cold calling. Like it's almost like
It
in a
is.
similar vein, right?
It's
It's
like
just
hanging up on a scammer every time I close an article.
yeah, it's those people that are calling you that it's just those scam calls. It's sort of similar, unfortunately, because if it gets your attention, that's the whole point, right? And it's a big waste of time and energy for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I just want to jump right into and that's a good topic. And I think actually before we jump into it, I just think that's very important, right? Because as soon as you rifle off an opinion without knowing all the facts, you do yourself a disservice rather than what everyone else says about you. If you look ignorant, you're wrong. It's easy for you to throw up the hand and say I was wrong. At least for me it is. But it happens all the time. People correct me on my YouTube videos all the time. Like I'm like, no, he's not a left winger. He's a centerman or something like that. Like I usually get that stuff right, but it could be little details that I get wrong.
For sure.
So
Everybody's going to be wrong. I mean,
be open to it.
the position that we're in is we like the show we do is a bit more about opinion. We're not a breaking news show
Yeah.
between you and I anyways.
Yeah.
And even in an opinion show, and I think it's proved it over the last couple shows where we're talking about this whole Burke story and how we handled the original news of the suspension versus how we're handling the news of the leaked conversation shows that, like, yes, if I had known that conversation was the way it was when we did our last show, I would have been a lot more visceral about it. But I hedged because I didn't know all the facts. And now that I know all the facts, I can give you a more concise opinion on it. And that, so I don't know. I guess what I'm just trying to say is, like, just choose who you're listening to carefully. If you're one of the many people out there on social media and viewers of shows and stuff like that, watch out for those things. Look at how often people are right. Look at how often they're just trying to bait you into clicking on their show, and make your decisions appropriately. And then eventually, if we all do that, those things will go away because they won't be making any money. What we have to do is we have to make money for the people who are giving quality reporting to those websites that give you the truth and don't. Yes, they're not going to be the first ones out there to rail against this thing when they don't have all the facts, but that the truth is coming and that they're going to be right about it. Those are the people you want to give your clicks to and your likes, and the people that are actually interested in the truth of situations and not just whipping up the controversy as much as possible. I mean, these things ruin teams. If you're a Toronto fan, this. You know how many players we've had completely ruined by media that tries to whip up controversy. You think Kessel would have been like, Kessel was one of the best scorers in Leaf history, and the fans all hate him. And I mean, yes, there's issues with certain parts of his game, but he did what he was brought in to do. He was a Leaf, a committed Leaf for a lot of years, tried to win every night. And, and then he goes back into the locker room and he's got, people saying that coaches are getting fired because he's uncoachable and stuff, things they know nothing about. They have no idea the relationship between him and his coach. And, they want to get that story and that controversy whipped up. And then it makes for a great highlight on TSN later to say, oh, look at Kessel went off on this reporter. And then guess what? Then all of a sudden his contract's up, and here's a guy who, could have been a good scoring winger at a lower price for Leafs for 5 more years while we brought in these better players. And no, he's going to walk. He's going to go somewhere where he doesn't have to deal with that crap. And who can blame him at that point, and it's because of media like that. Just it ruins people and it ruins teams. So let's stop giving them our money. That's what I say.
Yeah, it's true, and that's what, like, even Montreal did that too. Like, as you know, I follow the Canadiens the most closely, and now they've done a complete clean sweep, and including the communications department, which has someone who has a lot of integrity in Chantal Maccabi running that department now, who's had journalistic integrity for upwards of 30 plus years. So that's reliable. That's somebody they have now in place to make sure that that stuff gets filtered out. Like now you're not hearing as much garbage, and if there is stuff, they get called out on it. And that's what I love about that. So you're bang on there, and we're going to see more progress there. I'm hoping. So Hart Rofi
Rofi Trace.
The Rofi Trace. I think we needed to laugh. It's been a bit of a heavy episode. So the Hart Trophy race. So I think it's pretty fair to have Auston Matthews right at the top right now, because people probably feel like it's Auston Matthews, McDavid, Huberdeau, Johnny Gaudreau's come up in that conversation, maybe Barkov.
How about Shesterkin?
Shesterkin is another one. Yeah, he's a big one. So
see, I've heard it. Like I'm pretty sure people are probably. We're all pretty sure he's going to get the Vezina, but
yeah, that's a given. I think.
When was the last goalie to get the Hart? Yeah,
Carey Price.
Yeah, so it's been a while.
2015. So. 2015. I bet. I mean, that's my memory. I know, because he won all 4 of them that year. He won. Yeah, and actually, I should include Leon Draisaitl, I suppose, in this conversation.
See, I think Draisaitl is more worthy of it than McDavid this year. I mean, McDavid's got the points up, but Draisaitl's really been the clutch guy for their team. I mean, if you take what the Hart Trophy is, which is the player most valuable to his team, I think Draisaitl edges McDavid a little bit this year. That's just my opinion, but I mean, I know that being a center with Draisaitl on his wing, McDavid, there's an argument that McDavid would be more important, but this year they've been kind of separated a lot, and Draisaitl's carried a lot of the play and shouldered a lot of the things that team's been going through. So I think and I like that. I don't think that I think if you're asking a top 3 from me, it would be between Matthews, Huberdeau, and Gaudreau at this point. And I put Gaudreau in there because Draisaitl and McDavid are supposed to be the top 2 players in the league. They have been for years, and it's expected. Whereas Gaudreau has had to shoulder coming off of a less than good season for him as well, and has really stepped up to lead his team, especially in the wake of Monahan's sort of regression. Monahan used to be the go-to guy on that team, and then now it's sort of Gaudreau that's stepped up and really started to carry them. And so I think that, like, if you're talking strictly who's been valuable to their team, then Gaudreau stands up there. I mean, McDavid and Draisaitl almost kind of cancel each other out a little bit, right? So
yeah, I know
it might hurt their race. I mean, last year, nobody was going to touch McDavid last year. We didn't have 135 points or something insane. Like, he was untouchable. This year, it's a lot closer. I still think Matthews is the front runner. I
think so, and it's not because everyone needs to settle down. We know he's wearing a Leafs jersey. Eric's wearing a Leafs jersey, but
I put on the Marner one though. So
okay, and he's had a much better season goal scoring himself. So
Marner's been off the hook, yeah. And I mean, a lot of that is because Matthews is there with them, right? And it takes a duo. It takes a duo nowadays to do it.
I feel like Austin's been encouraging Mitch to shoot more. Like, I think that's very, very clear. Just if I would almost guarantee that a conversation was had, maybe even from Sheldon Keefe and as well, but I think that's very clear. But in focusing on the Hart, though, I think it's just the season Matthews has had. He's going to get over 60. Fans pushing for 70, but just in terms of his overall play, the body language, the work ethic, I think it's really clear how valuable Matthews has been this year. The goal scoring is obviously number 1, but that's why you play the game. So it's kind of a big deal.
Mhm.
And Matthews is sitting at, as of this conversation, 99 points.
But
But
it's even more than that. I mean, he's elevated his game to a level that it hasn't been to in his career yet.
yeah,
Not just
It feels like he's carrying the team, and
for sure.
that's not really inaccurate. I mean, they're having a really good season, but
Mhm.
he's leading
It's
the
not
line.
even just carrying the team; it's inspiring the team with back checking and physical
Yeah,
play and
yeah,
face offs and and just controlling play in a way that he wasn't doing before. I mean, I think when he was starting to build to that, but then I think when Tavares came in, him and Marner, once there was no chatter that either one of them was going to be going for the captaincy, um, I think they both kind of just took a step back for a year and a half or so and just sort of said, hey, we get to just, sort of skate around and score and have the fun that we want to have because we're kids. But there's been a level of maturity for both players this year that has been attained and a level of leadership on the ice that I think has elevated their game to what it is now. And if they can hold on to that for a few years, you'll see a lot more hardware coming their way.
yeah. And I think you got to really see what they're made of. I mean, of course, in the playoffs, and that's where it's really going to show whether that's going to translate into the most important hockey season of the year, which is the postseason. So, but it's underrated too because not everybody talks about. Um, guys like Jonathan Huberdeau, who's just having an outstanding season for the Florida Panthers, and the Florida Panthers are another Cup contender also, and then of course you got McDavid, who just is McDavid, but it's too bad because the Florida, like certain players of certain teams in certain markets just don't get enough love either, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and there's definitely people that you can look at that are having amazing seasons that are gonna, nobody's going to think about. But I'm gonna blame it on the fact that we we cheer for the two biggest markets in hockey, other than the
You and I,
Rangers.
oh
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it's just
77 assists for Huberdeau, by the way. Like he's
that's
second.
wild.
He's second in points. He's got 105, 28 goals, 77 assists.
Yeah,
Like
that's wild
he's
numbers.
10 assists or more above the next person in line, which actually it's Johnny Gaudreau with 67 assists. So,
Mhm.
but
And
my gosh,
when you consider that Huberdeau's not, it's not like, and that's one of the scary things about Florida is that they're just such a deep team offensively, that these assists aren't just to one player. It's not like it's Huberdeau to Barkov every time and it's in the net. They have scoring all the way through their lineup, and they can throw anybody out there on a power play. They can throw anybody out there in a penalty kill or a 5-on-5 situation, and it's always a threat. I mean, how great would it be to have that problem that no matter what line combinations you put together, they're amazing. I mean, who would want, who wouldn't want to have that problem? So,
yeah,
and I
oh
think
yeah,
Huberdeau on a team that's so offensively dynamic like that, to be a standout player and to have chatter about him is just, it's an amazing accomplishment for him. And if he misses out on the Hart, um, I kind of feel bad in a way because, he might not be back in that conversation right away. I don't think anybody would really expect it. It's just, he's just playing at a clip above right now. Um, he's like one of those players that you see and you're like, okay, they're doing really good right now, but it doesn't look sustainable to always be like, even with Matthews to be scoring at the clip that he's at now, you know, did 51 in his 50 games a span there. Obviously, he's not going to be a goal a game player over his career. That's just wild to think of that. But the way Matthews plays and how important he is to that team could get him in the Hart conversation year after year. But could Huberdeau get into the Hart conversation year after year? Probably not. So if he misses out on it, it'll kind of suck. I'll feel bad for him. But at the same time, as a Leaf fan, I'd love to see Matthews win it.
yeah. Well, of course, but like, and that understandable. But like with Huberdeau, it's it's so spread out throughout the lineup. Even Anthony Duclair. I remember when Tortorella made the comment about Duclair and how he didn't think he was an NHL player, or whatever. I'm like, wow, that comment didn't age well, did it, Torts?
Yeah, no, it did not
He's out of
age
the
well.
league now.
He had 2 goals the other night.
Like just crazy. Like it's just the depth scoring that Florida has been fun to watch. Like they're a fun team to watch.
Yeah.
And I think Matthew's value just again he stands out because Toronto typically isn't as deep. I mean, they got Matthews, they got Marner, they got Tavares, Nylander, Michael Bunting's had a great season as a rookie. You go through at the lineup, even Mikheyev, Kerfoot, Engvall. Look, those guys have all chipped in. Now, have they been as impactful as maybe Florida's depth? Maybe not as much, but I think that's why Matthews is probably the front runner for it. But I want to jump into which Canadian team. This is our last subject of the show. Is which Canadian team has the best chance at a cup this year? There's only 3 of them going to be in it this year: Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto. So,
well, to be fair, Vancouver,
they're not out of it yet.
They're not out of it yet. They're 7 points back.
But they're going to have a hard time.
That's a tough time. And they did beat Vegas the other night. But
Vegas is a mystery in itself.
Vegas took them to overtime. So they really needed that to be one of those 4-point games. Because Vegas is right ahead of them, just outside the bubble there on the for the wild card. But I mean, stranger things have happened. If it only takes 2 teams there above them, to Vegas being one of them, and one of the wild card teams to just tank the last 7 games of the season, and they might pop in. But let's stick with Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto, because even if Vancouver makes it, I can't see them making it past first round. They're going to be a good team eventually, just not this year.
Yeah, so, they're working their way.
Yeah,
now, you mentioned several episodes ago that you think Calgary has a very clear path to the cup, and I think on paper, the notion that they have the best chance at a cup as a Canadian team is very, very believable, or I don't know if just very conceivable. I think it's very conceivable that Calgary has the best chance, but I really think it's up to Toronto to make some noise this year. Now, the first round Demons got to be conquered first, but where do you stand at, based on what I said there, I guess?
Yeah, so I'm going to make our friend Spencer there very happy because he's a Calgary Flames fan. But I do think if you take this question at face value, which Canadian team has the best chance at a cup? I got to say that it's Calgary. Now, that's not saying that Calgary is a better team than Toronto. If came to Calgary and Toronto in the finals, which, oh my God, would that be awesome or what? I would take Toronto, obviously. And I think that Toronto's team is better on paper, and it's it has the talent to win a cup. I totally agree with that. However,
sandpaper.
Yeah, it's Calgary has the West, which is a little bit more malleable. If they can shut down McDavid and Draisaitl in that first round, because it probably end up being the 2 of them playing each other. Well, maybe not, but either way, it's if they can shut down those 2 and not let Edmonton upset them, they definitely have a better team than Edmonton, so they should be able to beat them. Really, your only hurdle to get over there is Colorado. And if you can get to Colorado in the conference finals, Colorado isn't known to be a great playoff team. They don't have, their goaltending is good when it's really good when it's good, but really bad when it's bad. Kind of like Florida. I'd love to bet on Florida to make a good run this year, but do you really trust Bobrovsky that much? He's typically very good in the regular season and tends to disappear in the playoffs. I feel the same way about Carolina with Freddie Anderson. I know I watched Freddie Anderson for years, and if when you're in the playoffs, if the team in front of you isn't supporting you 100%, goalies can be a shaky issue. So, yeah, I wouldn't put it past Calgary to make a good run. I think of the Canadian teams, they have the best chance based on where they are and who they've got to get through to go on a good cup run. Now, granted, if Toronto keeps playing at the clip that they've been playing at, then they'll be unstoppable in the playoffs. I know Tampa and Florida are tough teams, but we've proven that we can lay the hammer down on them throughout the season and turn it on when we want to. So if that happens, then yeah, it'll be Toronto. No question. We'll have the better chance. But I think like if you're just looking at it based on history and based on paper and based on like, what we've seen so far and the road that they have to go through, probably Calgary has the better chance.
Now, then you go to Edmonton, and you've got a goaltending tandem of Mike Smith and Koskinen.
Yeah.
So now, is there a possibility though that I don't know if Toronto, because people say Toronto likes to outscore their problems.
Mm-hmm.
So if Edmonton can somehow get a good goaltending performance out of these guys, I don't even know who your starter is. Is it Koskinen in the playoffs? Because Mike Smith's older. I don't know. But other than goaltending, is there anything else currently, at least based on the roster right now, that Edmonton has? Is there anything else in the way of Edmonton in the first round of the playoffs other than goaltending?
Well, I mean, with Edmonton, it's almost the same thing. It's the organizational demons that hurt them. It's the we've been losing for so long that we're just going to keep losing problems. I mean, their defense isn't terrible. I mean, their bottom three is maybe not the best, but their top three is good. Darnell Nurse can run the show anytime. And if you put McDavid and Draisaitl together when you need a goal, no problem. The big danger in putting them together is, so I think like with Edmonton, if you're going to beat Calgary, you have to outcoach them, and you're going to have to know when it's time to separate McDavid and Draisaitl and when it's time to put them together. You're going to have to, your special teams are going to have to be dynamite. You're going to have to know how to shut down the best line in the NHL with Gaudreau and Lindholm and Tkachuk,
yeah.
right? So, the only way that they're going to win is to outcoach them. And are you really going to outcoach Calgary? I mean, you have a tenured coach there who's coaching a team just like he was coaching in LA when they made their cup runs. Actually, did you hear what he said the other day? I saw it on a TikTok, and it's just Sutter, and he was doing some kind of post game or press conference, and he said if I'm a wild card team, I don't want to play Colorado because that's just a waste of 8 days.
I did hear that.
I kind of laughed at that.
I did see that. Yeah.
So and
Daryl
he doesn't.
Sutter.
And you know what? I'm going to tell you right now, like he's pumping their tires, but he wants to be that underdog team. He wants to be that heavy underdog team like he had as the 8th seed LA Kings when everybody expected them to be out first round, and then they lost 2 games to the Cup. They 16 of 18. Like that's disgusting what he pulled off out there, and it was all because he had that mentality instilled in his players. Nobody expects us to beat these guys. Let's go beat them. And we're going to beat them in every aspect of the ice. We're going to win every loose puck. We're going to hit harder than them, and we're going to shoot more, and we're going to have more intensity in our game. And it takes these high-skilled teams like Edmonton and Colorado, and it puts them on their heels. This is what Boston did to Toronto for years. I mean, every year that Toronto would play Boston, we'd always say, well, we got the more offensively talented team this year. It's going to have to happen, right? And then Columbus used the exact same mentality when they played him in the play-in rounds. They're like, yeah, we're underdogs. We're going to have an underdog mentality. We're going to beat them up, and we're just going to, muscle them all over the ice. And it totally happens. And sometimes your teams, actually most times in the playoffs, your teams can beat skilled teams using that formula, and there's nobody better than Daryl Sutter at using that formula. So I do think Calgary has a great chance. I could easily see them in the finals.
I like the gamesmanship though. I do like that because that's such a part of the game. I realized that when our ball hockey team, our rink rats team got to the finals, and we had to find a way to make sure that our mental game was sharp, and that was even with each other on our own team before we went out there and tried to win anything. So I like the gamesmanship, the mental side of it. I think it's fun. I think it's what makes the playoffs and actually makes post-game interviews fun and interesting and entertaining. So I'm looking forward to seeing what actually plays out for the Canadian teams there for sure.
Toronto, Calgary final. Can you imagine?
Oh, it'd be fun. It'd be fun for sure. It'd be fun just to see any Canadian team in the final again. But I know there was one last year, but we didn't have a chance from the get go. I just sincerely believe that. Now it was a fun run, but anyway, we're gonna end on that note. Gonna try to go watch some hockey right now myself. So
I got to go play. I got a Warhawks game.
Yes,
Actually,
you do.
Eastsiders game.
We have to get you.
I have to leave in like 5 minutes. That's why I have my bandana on already. Keeps my hair out of my face when I play.
Yeah, it does. I noticed that. Good stuff, guys. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. You know what to do if you like the show. You know which buttons to push. So with that, we thank you. We thank you for watching. And we always appreciate the comments. Keep them civil, keep them respectful, but we appreciate it. We'll see you in the next one.